Hello, hello. I am so excited because we are bringing our very own Naoya Ogura, our occupational therapist, our clinic director. I'm going to go ahead and us here. And we're going to be talking about autonomic practices. Ooh, you're fast, Naoya.
Hi, Julie.
That's awesome. Oh, Bella's on. How awesome
Hi,
is
Bella.
that? Hey, Bella. Nicole is on too. Awesome. Oh, yay, Lily is on. Woohoo. Many people were excited by your treadmill dancing video today, Naoya. And I think they wanted to meet the man behind those moves. Yay, Ellie, woohoo, is here as well. Wow, no, yeah, all of your fans. That is awesome. So, super excited to be joined by Naoya today, and we've been talking about this a lot as a team, and Naoya has been such a great resource for us, and that is practices that help us regulate our nervous systems, particularly our autonomic nervous system. And I say we, meaning us as therapists, meaning us as parents, meaning us as human beings. Um, I think as therapists and people in healthcare at this time, we're under a lot of stress. And I think when we work with people with really complex cases, we can be carrying a lot of that too. And I know for me, these practices, which we promote and use with a lot of our clients, have been so helpful and healing for me. And it's kind of like what's good for the doctor is good for the client. So anyway, now, oh yeah, today we are releasing, and we just put it out. There's a link in our bio, and you can go to our reactive education website, reactiveeducation.com, and download it. Are three of your recorded practices that we most often use, which are breathing, a sensory grounding, and a really lovely guided imagery. It's the Cape Cod guided imagery that you did. And so people can go and get your recordings of them, which are really great. I love listening to Naoya. But I wonder if you can talk a little bit about these practices, how you use them as an OT first.
Yeah. In terms of autonomic strategies, I think the way that I approach it in my sessions is to first ask the patient where they're at in using these coping strategies, or if they're familiar with them at all, right? Sometimes people are familiar with them and they are using mindfulness techniques, but sometimes I meet people who have never heard of them before, and they're very, very nervous about trying them maybe, or skeptical about it, or just not knowledgeable about what these techniques are. So I found that the three techniques that you just mentioned, focusing on the breath, sensory focus as you're breathing, and also the visualization techniques to be a really easy entry point for a lot of people. I typically start with the breath. So I feel like a lot of therapists maybe are already doing this with their clients, but finding a way to get that diaphragm activated as they are breathing, trying different positions, and kind of explaining the science behind it as well, being a really important component to all of this. And I typically have the person lead me in the next direction, like what's going to be the right step for them. So after you do the breath technique, usually people have different barriers that come up. Maybe they have a hard time staying focused on the breath itself. Maybe they feel like they're doing the breath wrong. There's a lot of self-criticism there. Maybe they feel like it's not relaxing to focus on the breath. Maybe they have difficulty with breathing, for example, if they have asthma. So in those situations, I might go more of the external focus, right? The guided imagery where you're focusing on a different. Did I disconnect?
Oh, you
There we go.
did just
So
for
I
a
might go there.
moment there, Naoya.
Okay.
You're
I'm
back though.
back
You're
on.
back. You were talking about the guided
Good.
imagery.
Yep. So we're talking about the external focus versus the internal. So external being the visualization techniques, guided imagery techniques. where you are imagining the person is somewhere else. And this technique, I typically like to personalize it for the person. So maybe the person might have tried a pre-recorded version of a guided imagery meditation off of YouTube or something like that. But sometimes it's a lot more effective if they have an imagery for a physical place that they've been to personally. So sometimes we'll walk through that. You ask the person, like, what does this space look like, smell like, feel like being there? You can make a customized audio for that if you like. If you're doing some of the internal focuses, I tend to focus on sensations of the breath, like we were mentioning, physical sensations as they're breathing. So yeah, I mean, so many different directions that you can take this, but I think having the audio could be a really helpful starting point, because sometimes just having that external cue in terms of how fast am I supposed to be progressing can be really helpful.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say too, because we've released the audios for people to use. Lily said this. She said, I used some of Naoya's recordings with one of my patients with FND here in El Paso, and they were amazing. So I think that's another thing. I know when I first started with some of these practices for myself, I did a mindfulness-based stress reduction course, that MBSR 8-week course, and they had a lot of recordings, and that was really helpful for me. And it was helpful for me then to even share recordings with my patients if I didn't feel comfortable saying them in a certain way, or maybe I didn't feel like I had the soothing voice or what have you. But I think they're like a way to start too. I really love how you say you personalize it. I know that even for me, when I was going through that MBSR class, some of the mindful techniques were traumatizing for people, and they had a hard time with them, and it took like a really skilled instructor to be able to respond and personalize it. And I know you've talked about that too, where people may have come in with kind of a preconceived notion of what some of these types of techniques might be, right? And
Yeah.
how might you talked a little bit about that, but how do you respond maybe if those things actually made things worse before?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think usually sometimes when I talk to other therapists about mindfulness techniques and how to use them in sessions, the barrier is, what do you do if the patient says, no, like that's not going to work for me? And you want to respect that, right? But I think the follow-up questions are really important. Asking them, like, what about it did you not enjoy? What about it didn't work? What kinds of techniques have you tried? Because that can give you more information about, right, what you're saying specifically, Julie, about what about it was traumatizing, what about it was ineffective. For some people, they have like their own spiritual practices, religious practices that maybe they think is in conflict with mindfulness, for example. And for getting to get that person to articulate that to you is really important, so that if there are some things that you can answer, some questions that you can answer to clarify what your specific approach is, you get that chance to talk about it, right? And I think once you get to talk about it, that's really the beginning, I think. If you can identify what hasn't worked, and if you know an array of mindfulness techniques, then you can go with a different direction and talk about it a little bit more. Of course, as you're having that discussion too, it's really important to validate what the other person is saying, like saying that, yeah, like that, I hear what you're saying, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that these techniques that you're doing are helping you. Here's what I know, or here's someone that might know more about these specific techniques, because in the research, we do see this and this and that. So being able to respond to the no, I think, is really important. Knowing how you're going to ask those open-ended questions is really, really important, because otherwise the conversation can end there, and it's really hard to reopen that topic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great, Naoya. I'm curious too. We actually, as you know, we have our staff meetings on Wednesdays, and this morning, I mean, I was really such a ball of nerves because of just everything happening with COVID and constant like chaos at my house. And I was like, let's do one of these. And we kind of, that was not planned, by the way, but I just turned on Naoya's recording for however uncomfortable that was for you to hear your own voice. But wow, like that really changed me even going into the meeting, because I was kind of coming in like this. And I really was like, I'm going to do this more often before I start things. So I wonder, what are your thoughts for us as therapists using some of these practices?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I definitely see the benefit too, and um, yeah, I think for me personally, what has been a major goal of mine is to be using these techniques in the moment, more during sessions, because in terms of doing it outside, I know it's more about like habit, routine formation. That I feel pretty comfortable self-managing and getting that started again, right? But doing it in session has been like a new skill set for sure. Um, Especially with phone calls, I think sometimes if you have difficult conversations with patients or family members, being able to use these techniques have been really helpful. So it kind of reminded me of the psychologically informed therapist worksheet that we talked about in another video, right? But being able to identify when we're entering that fight or flight state, being able to identify what those emotions are, being able to identify the changes in physical sensation in the moment, and to be able to observe them, right, and not catastrophize them, be mindful of the thoughts that are coming up as you're experiencing those sensations. Um, and primarily, I think for me personally, has been to use the breathing techniques as I'm listening to the person respond. Because
Mm.
you know you can't just pause in the middle of a conversation, but if you're listening, you can do some of these breathing techniques quietly. So yeah, that has been really helpful for some of the conversations that I've had with people, because if I'm able to um, better understand my own emotions coming into a conversation, that conversation can unfold in a very different way.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, for me, it took me using the leaf a little bit. So, which was a form of biofeedback, which measures your heart rate variability. If people haven't heard of that, I used it personally. And one of the nice things is it would like vibrate at you if your heart rate variability was dipping. And then it would lead you through a breathing practice. Now, I would be in the midst of doing something. I'd be talking to somebody, I'd be doing a patient session, but that would be happening in the background. And for me, it took a little bit of that to bring it into the everyday. So
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't wear the leaf anymore, but I, like you, will use a lot of those practices because now I have my own intrinsic biofeedback that I'm noticing in the moment, and I can be much more attuned to myself, which helps me tune in to the person that I'm with.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I mean, this is why Naoya, I love you as a part of our team. I love having you too as a part of our education, because we're bringing this to the therapy world as well. So that's one of the reasons we created this group of recordings to share with the world. They're for you, our therapist friends. They're for you to use them, and also for you to build a practice so that you can share these with your clients as well. So making a difference for yourself and for your patients. And I think a lot of times we forget about ourselves and we try to learn things that are helpful for our clients, but this is a win-win for everyone. So, and maybe a little preview, Naoya and Brittany and my team, where we've all been working on a secret course that's coming out sometime in 2022. So this is a little preview of some great things to be coming that are really about you as the therapist, and the complex cases that you work on, and building that team to support you. So stay tuned. That is happening. And Naoya, thank you for being a part of that too. So
Of
you're going to
course.
see a lot of Naoya dancing his way through our education world as well. So Naoya, thank you for joining me tonight too, to
Yeah.
talk about these mindfulness, these practices that tone our autonomic nervous system. And we'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for joining.
Okay, thanks. Bye.